then release the draft bill and give her remarks. Afterwards, a presentation on the draft bill will be given by Srimati Shahada Khan. Then we will take some questions if you have any. And a gentle reminder to all of you, please kindly keep your mobiles on a switch off or silent mode. Over to the Secretary WCD.
Honorable Minister for Women and Child Development, dignitaries on the dais, friends from the media, ladies and gentlemen. It was some months ago that the Central Advisory Committee on Trafficking met to discuss how best to tackle the problem of trafficking in the country. As all of you would know, it is the third largest organized crime after the arms trade and the drugs trade. So when the Central Advisory Committee met and also had consultations with the state governments, there was a general consensus that the legal provisions available now to deal with trafficking offenses are spread over different acts, and that we need a comprehensive law to deal with this problem more effectively. So accordingly, an interministerial committee was constituted to draft the bill, which is being released for consultation today. We have had excellent support given to this committee by a number of NGOs who are working in this field. I must take this opportunity to thank all of them for their contributions. And once the process of consultation is complete, our objective is to take up the draft bill for approval by the competent authority in the next 2 months' time. With these brief words, I would conclude, because a detailed presentation on the features of the bill will be coming up later. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now, I request the Honorable Minister to release the draft bill. How do you release a draft? Maybe you can just hold it. Thank you, madam. Request you to make your opening remarks.
Mr. Narona, officers on dais, ladies and gentlemen, I'm happy to be here today to start the process for a bill that is long overdue. For many years now, we have been watching a great drain on vulnerable women, vulnerable children taking place in this country. And it's not just in this country, it is in all our neighboring countries as well. In this matter, we are one, all the SAARC countries. Our children go from country to country, and from there to the Middle East, now to Africa. Our women are smuggled out. For instance, one of the chief NGOs in Nepal, headed by Mrs. Koirala, has saved 24,000 women in 1 year alone. So you can imagine how many thousands slipped through. But she was saying that they have a system in Nepal, which we've taken up already now, which is that the Gram Pradhan of the village can actually certify the date of the child. So what he does is, hello Mrs. Nair, nice to see you. Our new secretary. So what he does is, he'll certify a 12-year-old girl as a 25-year-old. And on the basis of that certification, she then comes to India, where she goes to Majnu Ka Tila, is kept there till a false passport is made. And then from there, she's taken out with nobody looking at any border. as to whether this 12-year-old girl is actually 25 or 12 or what she says she is. And she goes to the Middle East, and that's the last we see of her. And from the Middle East, now she goes to Africa. So we felt that it's about time that we brought in a Trafficking of Persons Act. The national provisions relating to trafficking of persons are primarily from the Indian Penal Code 1860, the Indian Constitution, and the Immoral Traffic Prevention Act 1956. The IPC contains provisions dealing with trafficking issues and imposes criminal penalties for offenders. The Immoral Traffic Prevention Act 1956 and IPC act as the main legislative tool for combating trafficking. The ITPA allows for the arrest of those engaged in acts of prostitution, but unfortunately, the victim becomes as much of a criminal as the criminal himself. Or herself. Most of the cases are registered under Section 8. As a consequence of that, victims of trafficking rather than traffickers constitute the largest number of arrestees. The Constitution of India forbids trafficking of persons and reflects in various laws, legislation, and policy documents of the Government of India. Article 23(1) of the Constitution of India prohibits trafficking in human beings and other forms of forced labor, making contravention of the same a punishable offense, and that includes beggary. Also, Article 21 of the Constitution of India guarantees that no person shall be deprived of his life or personal liberty except according to a procedure established by law. We have also ratified the United Nations Convention on Transnational Organized Crime and its 3 optional protocols, including the Protocol to Prevent, Suppress, and Punish Trafficking in Persons, especially women and children. India has become a source, a transit, and a destination for trafficking, as has even Bangladesh or Pakistan or any of the SAARC countries so far. It's causing a lot of concern to us because, as Mr. Somasundaran said, trafficking is the 3rd largest organized crime after drugs and the arms trade. We need to do something to arrest this rise. Now, so far, we have been working in different ways to stop trafficking. One of the ways has been to put posters in railways, alerting anybody to the prospect of a child that is being taken forcibly in through the railways. They can phone 1098, and the child will be picked up by the railway police and later on by Childline. We have also got trained and manned 20 stations of the railways, and we have found hundreds and hundreds of children weekly in these 20 places. But the point is, we have 12,000 railways, 12,000 stations. We have not taken those stations which are the start of where a child goes from. We've taken those stations where a child reaches. So we see those as more vulnerable. We also have got Childline, and Childline, as some of you who came with me to Gurgaon have seen, works in an extraordinary fashion, and probably the only one of its kind in the world, to listen to children on a minute-to-minute basis, and in February, March alone has dealt with 11 lakh in 1 month and 13 lakh in the next. And now, as a natural corollary to all this, we are coming out with a draft bill on trafficking. I would like to thank not just my officers who worked very hard on this, but Prajwala, Bachpan Bachao, and Gudiya, who were the 3 people who helped us draft this act. The National Legal Services Authority had submitted a report to the Supreme Court of India pointing out the gaps in existing legislation in handling a complex phenomenon like trafficking. It has pointed out gaps in the procedural and institutional mechanisms. There's a lot of interagency coordination, and intelligence sharing is found to be the biggest hurdle in investigation and prosecution of trafficking cases. So the proposed draft bill is an effort to plug the loopholes and bring additional crimes which have not found place in the Indian Penal Code. It recognizes the safety of trafficking victims after rescue, as well as considers instituting measures to assist victim recovery and integration into society. The main concern and aim of the draft bill, which is missing in ITPA, is the prevention of trafficking. By creating an anti-trafficking fund, we look forward to rehabilitate the trafficked victims by providing them resources and protection to avoid being re-trafficked. Most importantly, besides providing rehab services at the special homes, we are extending it to victims who have left the special home and, in the opinion of the District Anti-Trafficking Committee, are ready to reintegrate to join mainstream society. The institutional mechanism created at the district, state, and central level in the draft bill has members from CSOs to provide effective services as far as the prevention, protection, and rehab of the victims is concerned. The highlight of the draft bill is that it gives victims a legal right for rehabilitation, making the appropriate government more accountable to provide the same. I would be happy to the last thing I want to say is that trafficking, though trafficking is a cognizable and non-bailable offence as per Section 370 of the Indian Penal Code 1860, there has not been the required attention on this issue due to lack in legislation. The cases are not registered properly, and very few are facilitated to a logical end. So this Act attempts to give more powers to the authorities to do so. I would be happy, any of us would be happy to take questions.
They'll make a presentation on the draft.
Oh, presentation, okay.
So, thank you, Madam Minister. I request Srimati Shada Ali Khan, Joint Secretary, to make the presentation on the bill.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Madam and other dignitaries on the dais have already given you a brief outline of the proposed draft bill. In fact, many minds have gone into it, but still it is only a draft. We welcome your suggestions and inputs. We have simultaneously even placed it on our website, and it has also gone on to the MyGov portal, where citizenship interface is there. So we request all of you to kindly go through the detailed draft bill and kindly give us your suggestions, because this is a very important concern of this ministry. Thank you very much. So let's have quickly the...
Shada, before you begin, I just want to intervene. On Thursday, I'm going to be doing a live chat on my Facebook, on the ministry Facebook. If you could give any suggestions even about this bill on that, it would be really good.
Thank you, ma'am. So as has already been brought to your kind notice, the trafficking has been increasing menace in our society, and it is the third largest syndicate crime, which is, taking the future out of various children and women lives. Trafficking has been, next please. Trafficking has been happening not because of only the greed of other persons, but it is also because there is poverty, there are disasters which we are not able to really tackle and provide alternative employment to women. So domestic violence is one of the leading causes, and political insurgency and lack of secure homes, which make people run away from their known areas, and they are caught in the web of trafficking. The purpose of trafficking has been ever expanding. While sexual exploitation is one of the major things, but forced labor, organ removal, and servitude are some of the serious areas for which children and women are mostly trafficked. The next slide gives you an analysis of the crime. As you see, most of it is for immoral traffic, which is for sexual exploitation. Even minor girls are procured. It's a very sad state of affairs if you further go into the details. In Supreme Court of India, in fact, our own journey started with the Supreme Court of India giving us a directive to put in place a comprehensive legislation. We have a central advisory committee headed by the secretary, which has a good number of NGOs and states represented there, along with line ministries. In fact, today's effort is an outcome of all our consultations, which we had with the NGOs on this board and the government bodies which are on it. So the terms of reference have clearly been indicated already. Basically, our aim is to find out what are the gaps in the existing legislation and to find out how to prevent. Rescue is happening, but rehabilitation has been a very weak link. So we want to really give a legal right to victims so that they get out of the hands of traffickers and find new foot for them in the society. We are trying to strengthen the victim protection protocol, provide adequate shelter homes. Shelter homes are there. In 2007, we launched a program called Ujjwala, but it is now to be expanded. Homes are to be standardized. Honorable Minister has already given us instructions to come up with a social audit of these homes. So now this will become a part of the legal proceedings also, to give them a proper footing and recognize the services rendered by these homes, whether they are standardized or not. Overall objective of the bill is to look at the overall picture of trafficking. It is not only sexual exploitation, but it could be of various reasons and for various purposes. We want to create a legal, economic and social environment against trafficking of persons and for matters connected therewith and incidental to also. The salient features of trafficking are, the Indian Penal Code gives from 370 to 373 various crimes which can be identified with the crime of trafficking. But there are certain which are not included there and which are also in the area of trafficking, which we want to take up. The punishments which are being given would be the same as given in the IPC, but the new ones which are being added are prohibition on disclosure of identity. In case identity of the victim is declared, it will be taken very seriously. Penal provisions for use of narcotic drugs and psychotropic substance or alcohol for trafficking is a serious crime, and giving chemical substance or hormone for purposes of exploitation will be viewed very, very seriously and will be meted out with serious punishment. We know that the placement agencies are also creating a lot of problems for young women who want to come out and work. So placement agencies are for the first time being brought under an act. They will have to register themselves irrespective of the fact whether they are registered somewhere or not. But they have to follow the clauses given in this. Otherwise, it will be a punishable offense. Next one, please. The salient features of this bill are going to be a very strong aftercare services. We are going to create a trafficking fund. That fund which will take care of the needs of these women and children or the victims of trafficking when they come out and they want to start their life afresh. There will be special court for speedy trial of the cases. And it's also mandated on officers who are custodians of victims of trafficking to report the case within 24 hours. Otherwise, it will be a punishable offense. The provision of recovery of fine has also been strengthened. In case there is a loss for the victim in the shape of back wages, it will have to be reimbursed. Creation of anti-trafficking fund, I have already mentioned. This draft bill envisages putting in place strong institutional mechanism right from district to state to center so that there is constant monitoring and good results can be seen. Thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Khan. Now we will take some questions from the media. There are placards kept in front of you. Please raise them so that I can point out. Yeah, we can start with number. You want to ask? No. No questions? Yes.
No, the proposal is to have a separate fund for dealing with anti-trafficking work. So this will be at the state level. Supporting that from the Nirbhaya fund can always be considered.
Yeah. Madam, you wanted to ask? Yeah.
I wanted to ask about the Nirbhaya fund. I wanted to know about the
Please
fund.
pass it on this side, please. Yeah.
Actually, a very detailed protocol on rehabilitation has been worked out by some of the members of the committee. Now, that will also be raised as an issue for discussion during the process of consultation. So there is even a proposal to give the victim a new identity if required. In some cases, for protection of the victim, that may be required. It will definitely include vocational training so that the victim gains some employable skills and he can be effectively rehabilitated.
Yeah. Please ask your question. Yeah.
पुराने प्रावधानों से जो पुराना बिल एग्जिस्ट कर रहा है उससे इसमें कौन सी खास बातें हैं जो इसको और स्ट्रेंथन करेंगी और इसको रोकने के लिए कामयाबी होगी इसमें ह्यूमन ट्रैफिकिंग को? इसको ज़रा हिंदी में एक्सप्लेन कर देंगे तो बाकी लोगों के लिए.
No, actually there is no old act on trafficking as such. This is a totally new act that is proposed. So the basic new features are there will be a district anti-trafficking committee which will be headed by the district magistrate to make the mechanism more effective. There will also be a state anti-trafficking committee and a central anti-trafficking board. Secondly, there will be a special agency at the national level to deal with the crime of trafficking. And also, as I mentioned, a very detailed protocol for rehabilitation of victims.
Yeah, please.
Yeah. Trafficking, particularly in northeastern states, including Sikkim and West Bengal, the sources and destiny. How this the bill will protect of this trafficking, particular of that area?
You know, every district is going to have an anti-trafficking committee. Now, it's impossible to protect every single person, but if we can alert people enough through the media, through making this a major issue as time goes on, the committee then of every district will be able to oversee and protect a potential victim if they are complained to. Remember, this does not stand in isolation. Ek taraf se, we have already told you that we are having a special Mahila police officer per village. Now she will be the first person who will realize that something has happened in the village. Koi chali gayi hai, koi ladki gayi hai, koi bachcha chala gaya hai. She then alerts the anti-trafficking people. Part of that committee would be the police. We have a Khoya Paya cell. At the moment, what I've done in the last 2 years is to make all the peripherals so that all the peripherals are now in place, and now we go to the main body, which is the act. One of the things have I answered your question? This one. One of the things that I need you to put into this act, but which will come in after the draft and suggestions and all are over, is a timeline. What happens to a victim that is caught, put into a home? How does she get out? Because sometimes victims just stay there forever. So there has to be a particular timeline, especially for those that come from Nepal, from Bangladesh. I had gone to Chennai, and there I was visiting a home, just like that, on the spur of the moment, with only, I think, a day or half a day's notice. And we found 7 girls who had been caught and handed over to the home as victims of trafficking. And all of them were HIV positive. And all of them wanted to go back to Bangladesh. And yet they couldn't get passports, they couldn't get anything. So we came back and we talked to the External Affairs, and immediately they were repatriated, immediately, to their own homes. So that will also be part of the act. We've put down, it's part of the act anyway, about from children and women from other countries. And the protocols will be worked out on how it's to be done. And timelines given on how we deal with victims.
Yes, ma'am.
I have 2 questions. One is, what happens to ITPA now? Does it get subsumed in this new act? And the second is that placement agencies are already governed by laws from Labour, Overseas Indian Affairs, Home Ministry. So how does this play out?
See, the provisions of the existing acts, we do not propose any amendment. they will continue because ITPA has a different focus altogether. And as to placement agencies, there is clear evidence that many of them are being used for trafficking. So the idea is that at the state government level, they will need to get registered so that the number of persons to whom they give employment, etc., there is a clear record, and in case of an offense, they can be tracked and identified.
My name is Tripti Nath. I work for the Asahi Shimbun, a Japanese newspaper. Madam, you mentioned that children are being trafficked from India.
Where are you, Tripti?
Sorry.
Just put your hand up. Oh, there you are. Okay.
Children and women are being trafficked from India to Nepal and then all the way to Middle East and Africa.
No, it's the other way around.
Okay.
They come from Nepal to us and then from us onwards.
But our children are also being, sent abroad, our children and women, for a long time. You must be working very closely with the Ministry of Overseas Indian Affairs, and you mentioned this repatriation of Bangladeshi girls who wanted to go back, which is very welcome. But how are you going about bringing these girls back? In the last 2 years, how many such girls have you succeeded in bringing back to India and restoring them to their homes? Thank you.
We've caught thousands of them via Childline. They themselves call, or their guardians will call, or people who've seen them will call. Ever since the posters went into the railway bogies, there's been an increase in 30 lakh children calling. 30 lakh, it's not a small amount, per month. And they call when they're in trouble. A number of these will be from Bangladesh, who are in beggary here, from Nepal, and from I don't think anybody will be from Pakistan, but they will be from the other two countries.
From Myanmar.
And from Burma, you're right, from Burma. And we have helped them. It's an ongoing process which happens daily. We've asked Childline to keep a list of children from other countries so that we can evolve data on how many are coming to us for help.
Yeah.
Madam,
Agreement with these countries, they keep monitoring.
मैडम सरकार के लाख प्रयासों के बावजूद भी बाल श्रम पे लगाम नहीं लगाया जा रहा है, और खास करके राष्ट्रीय राजधानी क्षेत्र दिल्ली में भी हम देखते हैं बड़े पैमाने पर पूर्वोत्तर के बच्चे हैं या बाकी राज्यों के बच्चे हैं, वो बाल श्रम में लिप्त पाए जाते हैं, या वो बाल श्रम में उनको लगाया जाता है। इसके अलावा भिक्षावृत्ति हो, ये भी राष्ट्रीय राजधानी क्षेत्र में हम बड़े पैमाने पे देखते हैं। इसके लिए क्या आपका मंत्रालय कोई सख्ती से कुछ कर रहा है क्या?
ये जो ट्रैफिकिंग बिल है एक दफ़ा ये आ जाए, ये बहुत हमारे लिए आसान कर देगा करने के लिए, because we can call them victims of trafficking. One is that. दूसरा, हम लोग we took part in the labor bill that is been sent to cabinet now, and it's lying in cabinet about making much stricter laws. So when that finishes, it's the Ministry for Labor has sent it, but we were very much part of its draft.
Yeah, yes, madam, second row here. Speak into the mic, please. Yeah.
Ground, when a trafficker is caught, which provisions or which laws are going to be used to book him?
Both.
Don't they overlap?
No, under ITP there may be also cases which do not involve trafficking. So according to the nature of the offence, it will be charged.
Why did you choose to create a new law but not replace the existing one?
No, we are not replacing an existing one. It's a totally new bill. There is no law on trafficking as of now.
If you compare the two, I don't think you've compared the two. So first compare the two before you ask this question, because they don't overlap in the slightest.
Okay.
Ours is far more victim oriented.
Okay. And what are the provisions on prostitution or in this bill, if any?
Charta, just read it out, Peter. Read it out again. Yeah, we brought it out to draft. Just tell you.
So there is a proposal to have an agency, a special agency created for looking into these cases.
No, that's
And
not the- that's
I
not
thought
the
she was
question.
asking about
That's not the
prosecution.
I'll just tell you.
Special courts are also being.
No, that is not the question.
Because it is victim oriented, the answer to that Sharda was right. She's actually saying the right answer. It's not a question of either prostitution or the trades that they've been put into. Have they been trafficked? Is this considered trafficking under this act or the ITPA? If it is considered as trafficking, the victim will be produced before a district anti-trafficking committee. And there the anti-trafficking committee, which is made of XYZ people, which was given to you now, and the state anti-trafficking committee will decide on what happens to the victim. Do they get sent to a home? Do they get repatriated? Do they get rehabilitated? Do they get a change of name? And there will be many homes set up, protection agencies set up for the victims. See, at the moment, what is it? The law is that the trafficked and the trafficker are both criminals. And they both go to jail. So a girl comes from Nepal, she is caught here, she's say 14 years old. She goes to Tihar jail where she spends X amount of time. And there is no negotiation possible. Now we are saying that she does not go to jail. She goes to these committees, she goes to a home. We find different ways to repair her life. So it's a bill really of far more compassion, and which makes a very clear distinction between trafficker and trafficked, which is a nuance that should have been made 60 years ago. That's
So,
right.
unless you change that, won't it?
No. This will overlap that.
This will
yeah.
overlap.
I mean, not overlap. It'll yeah.
Yeah, Babu,
Ji.
in the first row here.
आपने बोला कि बिल आने के बाद कुछ काम होगा। पिछले 2 वर्षों में क्या जो बिल पहले से जो 60 साल से चल रहा है, क्या वो कोई काम के नहीं थे? नंबर 1 सवाल। दूसरा कि 2 वर्षों में आपने नेपाल बॉर्डर से, नॉर्थ ईस्ट से, झारखंड से जो मानव तस्करी बड़े लेवल पर हो रहा है, आज भी मीडिया में छपता है, उस पर सरकार ने क्या एक्शन लिया है?
हम
बनाया है राज्यों के साथ मिलकर।
हम आपको बता रहे हैं ना, अब पिछले हफ्ते ही झांसी के झांसी रेलवे स्टेशन से हम लोगों ने 56 बच्चे उठाए थे जो ट्रैफिक थे। तो बहुत बड़े पैमाने पर हम लोग बच्चों को, औरतों को उठा चुके हैं। ये नहीं कि हम इंतज़ार कर रहे हैं कि कोई बिल आ जाए और तो हम कुछ काम करेंगे। जब से हम आए हैं तब से चाइल्ड लाइन को स्ट्रेंथन करके, रेलवे स्टेशनों को सतर्क करके, ट्रेनिंग वहाँ दे करके, हर बोगी में पोस्टर लगा करके कि इस नंबर को फ़ोन करो अगर कोई मिल जाए, खोया पाया साइट को खोल करके, MHA को एक हिस्सेदारी, एक पार्टनरशिप बना करके, और रेलवेज, MHA और हम पार्टनर बन करके, we have achieved thousands of children have been saved and rehabilitated. ये नहीं कि हम नहीं कर रहे. There are many other things. Now हम लोग जो काम कर रहे हैं, महिला पुलिस वॉलंटियर्स, अन्य ऐसे चीज़ों में जब हम लोग डालेंगे तो it's not just this act, but this act is needed because there is no act governing a victim. There is data. There is data which I can send you. I don't have it at the moment, but we can send you how many trafficked victims we find.
Ma'am, just needed a clarification. If a girl is trafficked and gets into prostitution, and suppose there's a raid in that brothel where this girl is working, so this girl doesn't go to jail. Is the brothel owner who will go to jail?
Yes. The brothel owner, the pimp, the supplier, whoever, the person who sold her. All the roots will go all the way back. But the girl herself will be seen primarily as a victim.
But then that would mean you would have to withdraw it for it. ITPA, in ITPA,
No,
sex work
no.
is illegal. under that?
Yes.
And
No,
it
there
is
is a
liable
gray
for
area.
punishment
There
in
is a
prison.
gray area, and I'm glad you pointed that. There is a gray area, but we're going to have to work on it. Let the draft go all the way through. Let everybody give their suggestions to this draft to see that those gray areas become less gray.
And ma'am, at some point of time, will the ITPA be subsumed under this new law?
You don't need to. This is, go on. What do you want to say, Preeti? Bolo?
No, the problem we are trying to deal with is trafficking. So this will be a subset of that. And then, case to case, facts also vary, so they'll have to be dealt with accordingly.
You see, Maushami, what do we do with the victim? This is so nuanced. For instance, the question that you asked. Forget that I'm in a press conference. Just the question you asked. Suppose the girl has been in prostitution for 15 years. Is she still a victim, or is she just a part of the trade? In which case, does ITPA apply to her, or do we? That also has to be thought about in this draft. So I'm just saying there's so many nuances to this, which is why we have done at this point a bare bones draft. This will be on our site for what, a month?
1 month.
Yeah. And in that 1 month, anybody is welcome to ask these questions. You may not even have answers or suggestions. Ask questions. And we'll work our way around, because we've got a lot of child agencies working with us. And child agencies, women agencies, rehab agencies. And so we will fill in all the gaps that we need to fill in, so that once the act is done, it will answer your questions.
Ma'am,
One last question.
The point is that this is the first act since independence which is attempting to deal with a standalone problem of trafficking.
Ma'am, my question is, how will you deal with the nexus of police with this sort of crime? If police is found any involved, or any sort of instrumentality is found, is there any provision in the bill they will be penalized, they will be harshly penalized for this?
I think there are a large number of anti-corruption laws that deal with the police involvement in any form of crime, and those would apply.
Ma'am, as a further to their question, does this new legislation effectively decriminalize sex work while cracking down on traffickers?
No, it doesn't. As I said, this is so nuanced that we have to, at which point does it decriminalize? At which point does it consider them a victim? At which age would you consider them a criminal? All this will be in refining the draft. And these are all really important questions that you've asked.
Ma'am, can I just ask, do you have a time frame of when you would like the final bill to be put before Parliament?
Well, if we put this up today on the site, which it's gone up today, we give 30 days from today. From there it goes to every ministry. You know the process. The earliest we can bring it in is December. So we will certainly try to do it this year.
Just the last question there, madam.
Sir, a lot of NGOs that have spoken on trafficking have brought the focus on accountability of government officials, not just the police like they have asked, also others. I think there's a huge demand to make sure that apart from normal citizens, a lot of people within the force that sort of exploit these things. Another question I wanted to ask is...
What's this question? I haven't understood this question.
No, there's a lot of demand for accountability for officials of not just the police force, but also of the government that sort of allude to the crime. And I wanted to understand if, is there, in the law that we are mooting, is there a provision to have a harsher punishment for the government officials than the normal ones? Because the law is in their hands, I mean, in the sense they're the one who implement the law. And the other question I wanted to ask is, what is the harshest punishment that we are proposing in the law?
Okay. See, there is a provision for a special investigative agency at the national level, because this requires a lot of new investigative skills to be developed, a database to be developed. So that will answer the first part of your question. The second is culpability of the officials. I don't think it can be presumed. It has to be dealt with, based on the facts of the case.
पुलिस वालों, हमने कहा ना कि बहुत सारे एंटी करप्शन लॉज वैसे भी हैं जिसमें पुलिस वालों को पकड़ा जा सकता है, उनका नेक्सस अगर इस्टेब्लिश हो जाए तो उसमें एक एक्ट में मैं नहीं डाल सकती हूँ कि पुलिस वाले अगर पकड़े जाएं तो उनके साथ मैं क्या कर सकती हूँ, बिकॉज हम लोग we assume that the police is the police.
Thank you, Honorable.
But before I finish, I'd also like to tell you that we are working actively with NGOs from Nepal, Bangladesh, and other countries. And we just had an international meeting called SIVEC. And we're working with all the NGOs there as well as the governments to see whether we can take their inputs into making this act. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
SAARC countries have a convention on. So
Yes.
are we? That there is a framework available which was created, and there is also a task
We've
force.
already had one meeting of theirs.
Yes, and second thing is about the prevalence. Because there is no proper assessment of the numbers. Like, there was one study which was done with Mr. Nair is sitting here. There was one research which was done with the Human Rights Commission, and he was one of the lead researchers. But I think there is need for a very serious intervention in terms of understanding the prevalence of the issue.
Okay.
We are only making guesswork about how many millions, how many people. But
That's
there's
true.
no actual number.
No,
And
the
also
reason why
case-
there's guesswork, Ranjanaji, is because Nepal will freely admit to how many are coming across the border and how many they catch, because they have really good NGOs. But Bangladesh denies it totally.
Yeah. And also internally, because there is a lot of issues internally coming from Ranchi, Gumla, all kinds of areas where interior people are coming to the major cities. And that assessment also is very important to control it from within the country. That is happening. Thank you.
I think that assessment has been done in part. And the reason why I say that is because when we were choosing the railway stations, the 20 railway stations, we talked to all the NGOs that had been involved in catching children that had been trafficked. And it emerged that these were the 20 railway stations that the maximum number were coming to. And they have data on which are coming from Jharkhand and how many are coming from West Bengal and how many are coming from Bihar, etc. So on the basis of their recommendations, we chose those 20. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Honorable Minister and other dignitaries on the dais. Friends, the WCD Ministry has arranged for tea and snacks on the 4th floor. Kindly join us. And thanks for being here.